This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. We're going to learn a lot today, and what we learn today can greatly impact your life. And I really do mean that. I've lived it. I've been on that journey with a number of things that we're going to dig into today. And these are words that you probably have heard, but you're not really sure what they are. You know they're good for you, but you're not 100% sure. Maybe maybe you're 1% aware of what they are. Integrative mental health counseling and also wellness counseling and coaching. What do those even mean? It means a lot. And she is somebody that practices that, helps many reframe their lives, move their lives forward. It doesn't matter where you are in life. If you're feeling that you're stuck, if you will, and things are just, there's more out there. Life is okay. There's more out there, but you're not really sure how to get it. We're going to talk about that today with Brenda Arnold, who joins us on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Steve. Thank you for asking.
I have to tell you, integrative mental health counseling, if you ask me to define that very clearly, I'm not really sure what to say. I'm being honest with you. What does that mean?
Well, and it's a term that maybe you don't hear a lot when it comes to counseling. But what that means is I'm a functional medicine certified health coach. So I do wellness and diet and integrative kinds of wellness strategies. But I'm also a licensed professional clinical counselor. So I'm a mental health counselor. And with the two, I integrate the two and look at kind of the wholeness of who people are when they come to me. So instead of just as most mental health providers, they come to you and you're talking about their emotions, you're giving them a diagnosis typically, and we're really looking at the emotional well-being. And with the health coaching piece alongside of that, I also can look at their diet. I can look at their physical fitness, their emotional piece, their stress piece, their spiritual piece, and really look at people more from a holistic lens rather than a piecemeal lens. And the beautiful thing that I do is I work in connection with some clinics. So I'm able to smoothly kind of talk about what's going on with them. If they have a provider, an integrative provider that maybe looks at, again, the word integrative, as you said, it looks at maybe supplements, alternative kinds of modalities besides just the clinical medical. So they're looking at all the pieces to the pie that makes us healthy and well, our nutrition, our physical fitness, because what we know is what affects us physically affects us emotionally. What affects us emotionally affects us physically. And the spiritual aspect as well is in there because the spiritual aspect sort of grounds us. Our beliefs really grounds us in who we are. It's kind of the formation of who we become and who we are. So I always want to be very sensitive in looking at the whole picture of who people are when they come in. And I think people actually make better progress that way and they feel more honored.
Looking through the lens of a non-qualified professional, this is the way it should be. It's great having a therapist, counselor, life coach, somebody to talk to. Maybe there's some accountability in that as well. But unless you look at the whole picture, diet, exercise, relationships, all of that, you're not going to really get what you need because don't they all work together?
Yeah. And to your point, Steve, that's absolutely correct. They do work together. And I was fortunate enough to work at a place where the physician there was also a functional medicine doctor. And
can you define that? What does that mean? You said it before. I was going to get there. Like, what's a functional medicine doctor?
Well, it's a doctor that looks at the way things function, so to
Okay.
speak. And this may not be technical, but I'm going to go with what I know to be true. So they're looking at the way the body functions, right? We're not looking through a lens of just a medical lens, right? We're looking at how we get where we're at. Because a lot of times the medical profession, they're looking at the symptom. In the functional realm, we're looking wholly at how the body functions. What is the function of each piece of us going on? What's the whole picture? Again, how are we functioning? And how can we create a better way of functioning for people, right? So that means changing patterns. That means looking at our
Mm.
health. That means the day-to-day functioning and bringing the lifestyle into the picture of health and well-being. If that makes sense. It may not be the technical description, but it's the best way I can describe it, as that they're really looking at the health and wellness, the holistic lens that we talked about. And I think
Yeah.
that makes a difference. We often saw young kids at the clinic I worked at, and our first line and our first protocol often was looking at diet, looking at supplements, looking at less invasive kinds of things as first line approach versus just medication. Let's say the child comes in with ADHD. And so that's that piece of just really honoring everything of how the body functions, and kind of use an investigative lens on what's going on here, what's the river running under it, and how can we put it all together.
It's like the big picture doctor, where,
Mhm.
you know, look at a traditional Western medicine doctor, not taking anything away. There's a place for
Right.
everything.
Absolutely.
But many times they don't have the time to listen, take all the pieces. Like it's almost like a CSI investigator. I need to have all the pieces
Yeah,
here
it is absolutely.
so I can figure it out as a doctor. And unfortunately, the way things go, they'll treat the symptom. Let me write you a script on that and see how it goes. It's not looking at the root cause. What's really happening here? Let's go deeper. And that sounds like functional medicine doctors and yourself as well. We're going deeper. Let's take a look here. We're going to figure this out.
Right. It's to me, I always say the river running under it. So we're often looking at what's underneath what we're seeing. And I think that becomes really paramount when we're really trying to do a service for people, is to look a little deeper. And, the beautiful thing about what I do from the counseling standpoint is I have an hour of time to spend with people.
Yes.
And doctors, unfortunately, just don't have that from an insurance perspective. So for me, the more I can work in tandem with doctors and the more holistically I can present all those things and work with all those things with clients, the better they're getting served, I think.
My mind works very weird, and I get downloads of music. And I thought of this song before, and then you said a word that connected to it. Talking Heads Once in a Lifetime,
Yeah.
where it talks about, and by the way, there's many contemporary artists that admit they listen to this song once a month just because of the way it sounds, the message.
Oh,
And
wow.
basically it is, you may find yourself with a beautiful wife, with a large automobile, et cetera, et cetera. And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here? So here you are in life. How did I get here? And some of the words, and you just said the river flowing underneath, that's part of the lyrics. That
Mhm.
is a part of the lyrics of that song where there's a common theme. I just looked it up: water flowing underground, water moving, and same as it ever was, same as ever
Right.
was.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of us look at life like, all right, here I am. It's okay. How did I
Mhm.
get here? Why am I here? Like, what's going on next? What are you hearing, Brenda, from the people that you work with? What seems to be the common theme right now?
As far as what people present when they come to me,
Yeah, what do they tell you?
um, a people are coming in. I mean, they're reading my bio, so they have an understanding of what I do.
Hmm.
But they're saying, I'm just not getting the help I need. I've seen people, I'm not getting the help I need. And it's my job to kind of be a good listener, right? To hear their story, to hear who they've seen, what they've been working on, what they're struggling with. And I think that's the basic thing, is people are sometimes not feeling served. And, it's my job to find out what it is they really need, to your point, the river running under it, so that I'm coming alongside on their journey and they're driving the bus. So I'm doing, as you would say, the investigative work, and they're being honored in the process. So that to me is my job, is to really be a good listener, to look at them through this larger lens, and then to allow them to kind of tell me what it is that they need.
Isn't it funny? Even going back to childhood, what do we want? We just want to be heard. We want to, right? And it's the same thing in what we're talking about. That doctor, on average, Western medicine doctor, get 11 minutes. And that's the hello, the goodbye, and the script and everything, where you take an hour, and that's, all part of the process. How did you get here? How did you get here? Your journey, what brought you here?
Well, it's an interesting journey. When I was younger, my parents really struggled in their relationship and eventually divorced. And I think I struggled as a result. My siblings, I struggled as a result, trying to make sense of it, figure out what's ours, what's not ours, what's normal, what's not normal. Like a lot.
Same story, by the way. So I really just
Yeah.
saying.
So, and you're not alone, and I'm not alone, right? And then I just became very aware of the need. And my heart just kind of spoke to me. And I thought, I want to help other people who are where I'm at, so that they don't have to figure it out on their own, right? The hard way. And sometimes make some poor choices or not know it's normal. And so I just really felt very passionate about it. And then, as life would be, my life took a different track. I started out with my college and couldn't afford to finish. And so then I got married. I had children. I have 4 daughters. And through that process, I still had that passion, right? But life was busy, very full. And when my second daughter went to college, I said, it's either now or never, or you're going to be graduating to retire. So I went back to school with 1 in elementary school, 1 in high school, and 2 in college, and went back and got my undergraduate and then my master's level. So I guess I'm a testament that it's never too late. Do your dreams, go for your dreams. It's really never too late.
Did you feel something inside that was just pulling you, drawing you, like it was calling you?
Mm-hmm. It is really, for me, it's really a calling, because I've felt that way from when I was young, and it never left me. And so I knew that that was something I was meant to do and called to do. And so I was determined to do it. And I'm sure, to the dismay of my daughter, that had to see me on campus and be at college and want her freedom. And there's mom. Nobody wants their mom at college. But I was very respectful of her space. But, I just chose to meet my calling. And the rest has been history. And I've really loved what I do.
That's
So
so cool. It's like you see your kid on campus, and it's like, did you eat?
yeah, well, it was more like my daughter said, Mom, can you just make some of your own friends? Because the only people I knew at college were her friends, right?
Mm,
And I said, listen, there is no one my age in an undergraduate program at this school. So we managed, and she was very graceful about it.
wow.
But again, the rest is history, and it was worth the effort I put in, because what I'm doing now, when I know I can make a difference, that's that's all there is for me.
I want to talk about that for a second. Um, our ppurpose in life. This is your purpose. You heard it. It was pulling you. This
Yes,
is,
it was.
we struggle, many of us struggle with what our purpose is. Do you believe that we all have one? There's something that we've been given, talent, whatever it is, and that's our purpose, but we don't know what it is until, I guess, until we find it and identify it.
Yeah, I think we all have gifts and callings. And some of us have a few, not just one. But I think being quiet enough and taking the time to
Hmm.
be able to see it and appreciate it and invest in it matters. And sometimes, unfortunately, life is so full of difficulties, transitions, busyness, got to make some money, got to, all the to-dos, that sometimes what can be drowned it out or quieted is the voice within us that keeps calling us towards something. So sometimes being quiet, you mentioned early before we started that you went on a little retreat. Being quiet is one of the things that I think helps that voice to be heard. So often, unfortunately, our society is so full. And, I struggle with that myself too, is finding that balance of being able to say, I need to be quiet a little bit, and I need to be brave enough to hear those voices, or take the time to use my gifts. Sometimes it's an art gift, a music gift, it can be all kinds of gifts. And sometimes we just don't allow for time to either listen to it or do it. So yeah, I think we all have gifts and callings. I really do.
I completely agree. I'm in a men's group. Never thought I would do something like that. Joined a year and a half ago. I thought it was a cult. I didn't, what the heck am I doing here? And it's to support other men, leadership, community service, all of that. Friendships have been great. I know if I pick up my phone, I need some help. The bunch of men will show up at my door in a second. We all support. And we had a meeting a few weeks ago. We meet once a week. And one of the men was talking about his purpose, just what we're talking about. And some of us said, have you ever sat by yourself and just been quiet? And he thought about it. He said, no, I've never done that. And we all said, highly suggest you do that. And it's so funny because we're taught in the mental health world, are you hearing voices? Do you hear voices? And that's can be not a great thing depending on the situation, but you want to hear what's in. Because I believe any answer you need, you already know the answer. It's in you. You got it. Your intuition. We're all wired that. Why are we still here? Because of all of this stuff. It protects us too.
And that's so cool that you're part of a group, because I think we all yearn for some kind of support, right? And to make some meaning of our lives. We want our lives to count for something and be meaningful. Yeah. And I think that changes with our season in life. And I think we're always evolving and changing and transitioning. But being open to the next thing or where you're being called to be is pretty cool. That's pretty neat that you're doing that.
Would you say that those things like listening to the voice within, going inside, that's part of mindfulness, which you help people with, or call it spirituality, spiritual counseling, that kind of thing? Would you put that in that category?
Well, I sure would, because before I became a counselor, actually my job was a massage therapist. So I did a lot of guided imagery and those kinds of things. And I've pulled that into my practice for mindfulness, for guided imagery. Many times people with anxiety, the busy brain, which is really what anxiety does, the brain just doesn't want to stop. It helps walk them through to become more mindful, to quiet the brain. Not only do people need to seek out some solitude, right, and some quiet time to be able to hear, but also sometimes people with busy brains need tools to help them relax. And so I use a lot of biofeedback, a lot of guided imagery, mindfulness, meditation, all those things. Breath work is key. So all the things I think help people in that arena quite a bit.
What's your advice for somebody going through anxiety now? The monkey chatter, they can't quiet it down. Would you say, would it be breathing? That's, step one. What would you say?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I think a lot of people today have more anxiety than I've noticed in the past. Yeah. And I think it started with COVID, where it seemed like everyone had anxiety because it was such a huge anxiety provoking transitions and awareness and scary, all of those things. And then it almost seems like though the ebb and flow, it came down today with so many changes going around in the world and shootings and all these things that are very ungrounding, that anxiety becomes a little higher. I've noticed it's higher for kids in general, right? When I was a kid, we didn't worry about anything except for, are we going to be liked at school? That was it, right? There were no, maybe a tornado warning, that's it. So we noticed that anxiety and busy brain, just with our society, and if you put in technology, right? So our brain doesn't have to stop when it comes home. If you're a kid in school, you have the phone constantly in front of you, keeping your brain full, 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 full. And so I think some of the tips for anxiety to me are individual. There are basic things we can do and tools we can teach. But it's sort of individual. And I know that's not a very good answer for what you said, but for some people it's breath work. For some people it's taking walks outside and being meditative. Some people, their brain just cannot slow down unless they hear somebody else talking about something and walking them through that relaxation. For some people it's tapping. We do tapping. Some people some people feel really good if they can get in a workout. So there's all kinds of tools, but sometimes some of the parts, the river running under it again. If it's anxiety that's tapped into fears and worries, that's going to be different. We're going to use some strategies for that.
You said a word that I don't think I've ever heard before in what we're talking about, ungrounding. Now, we always talk about in this mindfulness world of get grounded. You got to get grounded.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard ungrounding, i.e., the current situation globally, all the stuff that we're dealing with, or things that we hear. I've never heard that said before. And it makes even more sense to say ungrounding, that what's it doing to us?
Right.
And even if you're not directly affected by world events, I got to believe it's making a mark on you subconsciously. You're taking all of these messages in, this violence over here, that negativity over there, this, that, all of that, scrolling through, all of that has got to be doing something to unground us, right?
And it does. And so to your point, that's why it's much more even important to be purposeful about doing the things that balance us, that ground us. The group you talked about, a group that you can count on, friends that we can count on, places that we can process, things we feel good about that give us joy. Those are all really, really important. And I think for some people, unfortunately, that's part of my job too, is to be the grounding force if they don't have a group, if they don't have family support. So I do know that sometimes that's part of my job, but offering up all the tools. And then I say to people, these are things that are individual. So you have to figure out what it is that fills that for you. It's my job to present things, and it's their job to decide, yeah, Brenda, this works, thumbs up, or no, I that mindfulness thing didn't work for me. Let's go somewhere else. So, and that is part of being creative and holistic, is that we have a larger tool set. People call them tools in our field, but we have a larger arena of things to pull from so that we're maximizing people's health and maximizing their results. And so, I don't know if that was a good answer to that question, but that's what I got.
Totally. No, totally. And the tool thing, it's so true. Not being negative about Western medicine, but a lot of times it comes down to a med. And maybe you don't need that. Maybe there's other things, other tools out there that can support you. You got to find the right one. Maybe breath work might not work for you, but maybe meditation might. Maybe just walking in the woods, grounded, might do it for you. Brenda, you can work with anybody anywhere virtually, right?
Yes, I can. Well, within the state of Minnesota, that's where I'm licensed. So there is a limit. That might be changing. They're doing some work to change some of the interstate work. I've yet to hear exactly what that's going to look like. So hopefully that will broaden. But for me right now, it's just Minnesota.
And that also covers wellness counseling. That has to be within Minnesota.
No, it does not, actually. It does not. So I can do some of that separately if people want to do that. That is within the arena. For me, I usually do them together locally because it allows people to utilize their insurance, right? Otherwise, it's usually an out-of-pocket expense. But yeah, if they're looking to do some work holistically from that angle, just the functional medicine health coach, I'm welcome and happy to do that. So
I just want to keep talking to you because you're so grounded. Like you really are. Like very comfortable and knowledgeable. What's your website? How do we find you?
It is Legacy Counseling Wellness LLC.com.
Are you originally from that area?
Do I have an accent? Are you going to tell me I do?
You
Yes,
don't.
I am.
You don't. That's why, I didn't hear a sota.
Oh, you didn't hear a sota, or
No, I didn't. I didn't hear it. And I had back in the day, a general manager that came from there. Can't think of the town. It was a big one with long name. And she had a little bit of that, but I didn't even hear it in you. That's why I'm just curious. That's all. Wonderful talking with you, Brenda. Love what you do, what you offer. And you support women. Next time we get together, we're going to talk about some of the things you can help women out with. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, you're welcome, Steve. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Likewise. We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.